Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. You are listening to the Maryam Mkwanda Show on Salam Media, and we are also live on Facebook. Thank you for joining us. All right, so it is time for the marriage segment, and today we're going to be talking about anger management in a marriage. So, picture the scenario: you might be upset, or you and your partner. Thought that, or y'all had agreed rather, you and your partner had agreed that one would wash the dishes on a certain night, and you end up finding the dishes not washed, and neither of you decides to do the dishes, and you become upset, and your partner also becomes upset at you because you didn't wash the dishes, even though it was his turn to wash the dishes, and you don't want to go to bed angry, but you still feel like, you know what, I'm supposed to, it's not my turn to wash the dishes anyway, so why should I be doing it? But you go to bed angry anyways. But that is just that is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to anger and resentment in a marriage. And that's not much of what we want to discuss today. But we'd like to know, where does anger stem from first? And joining me is sexologist and relationship coach of Maryam B Khan. Assalamu alaikum, Maryam.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good to see you, Maryam.
Alhamdulillah, it's good to see you too. It's been a while.
It has. I must apologize. I've been busy every time your team tried to contact me.
No problem. Well, it's great to have you back once again. So, anger and resentment in a marriage, where does it stem from? Where does that idea of feeling angry towards your partner comes from?
Oh, I think there are so many factors that play a role here. And I think as we go along with the discussion, we'll come along different factors. But often it's, one person not feeling acknowledged, not being heard, not being understood, not feeling valued. So I think as we go along with the discussion, we'll unfold a few more.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, why do we often get angry at those whom we love? And this is not just about our partners, but also our siblings. Sometimes with our kids as well, our parents. We have this anger and resentment towards them.
I'm not sure if we have an anger, resentment toward them,
Mm.
or that, we sometimes take advantage of the relationship in that they have nowhere to go and we're not going anywhere. And this is like almost like a fixed relationship. Though we know that marriages don't necessarily work like that, they can end,
Yes.
and so there's a potential to abuse that space, and we have to be very aware of that.
Hmm. So it's kind of like just taking advantage of the person, knowing that they will be there in your lives for, for a while.
And taking for granted that that you'll be able to
Mm.
mend it, whether you really acknowledge your fault or the person's fault, but that the relationship stands, and I really do not support the idea that where there's love there would be more anger. Often we
Mm.
come from these communities where, especially in boy girl or man woman or husband wife relationships, they say, that if he loves you, usually the anger is a sign of love or an indication of love. But
Yeah.
I really think these are toxic ideas of love and how relationships work. So we really need to address that. And I'm going to wait for your further questions so we can tackle those issues.
Yeah, no, well, just to comment on what you just said, I know that we always, when boys used to trouble certain girls in school, tease them, irritate them, or whatever, we would always be concluding that no, he does that because he likes you. And you don't really, well, if you like someone, why should you be treating them in such a way? I mean, it doesn't even make sense.
Absolutely. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I taught her a long time ago that that's just BS. That's not something that should be used as an indication that someone likes you. In fact, if they like you or love you, they'd want to treat you with more respect and more tenderness and compassion. So definitely, we shouldn't be enabling these kind of behaviors.
Hmm. So, how do you allow your partner to vent out their anger in a proper way?
So there are two components or a few components here. It's your it's your part in the process, in this angry process or in this communication um, dilemma, and it's their anger. So I think
Mm.
understanding that something triggered their anger and monitoring how this anger is unfolding. So Is it going out of control? Is your partner communicating one particular item or one particular area of concern, or is it very complex? Is the anger rising? Is the anger becoming uncontrollable? I think we have to draw boundaries, but one of the things you don't do is say, calm down, because a person who's angry, the last thing they want to hear is calm down. And they definitely are not very good listeners when they're angry. So I think it's just monitoring the situation, and you would know. And it's very difficult in marriages because usually, if it's a toxic relationship, where in relationships where there's abuse and there's cycles of abuse, and we understand the cycles of abuse, a partner is able to identify that cycle, the pattern, what's going to follow next. So you need to gauge how safe or unsafe you feel in that situation and how you respond to it.
So then, how would you know if you are the one with the anger and resentment issues?
I think it's coming back to assessing the situation, assessing the emotions that keep arising. So, if you keep rehashing a situation or if you keep going back, so I think you're going to talk about triggers later on. So we look at what triggers, your behavior, any particular thing. So I'm going to look at a simple or not so simple example. Often you'd find, and I was talking about this yesterday, I was consulting on this issue actually yesterday in terms of anger. And the person said, the problem that I have entering the situation where I can resolve this, this concern is that I enter it angry, because past experiences that I've been dealing with and coming with just leave me angry and feeling like I haven't had the situation resolved for whatever reason. So I think that if you be able to identify your triggers, you know what makes you angry, and then you'll be able to, or you should try to work out a strategy that if you're entering this, this situation, or if you're confronting your partner, you both need to be in a good space. So you need to gauge that space. Then you need to be able to identify one or two concerns that you want to address, and how are you going to address it so that you don't lose control of your anger. So if you're highly triggered, that's not a good time to be addressing something. You should find ways to calm yourself down so that you can address the situation when you're not so triggered.
Infidelity or cheating can be one of those
Mhm.
triggers to anger issues. And the person who is on the receiving end, or rather the person who cheated, feels like, their partner should not be angry at them for a long time, because I mean it's just something that happened, or for whatever reason that they have. But it's like, how do you address that issue without being angry every time you see your partner with chatting to a person of the opposite gender? And it sort of triggers back those memories of what happened the previous time, which led to your feelings at the moment.
Wow, this is a completely different situation. So, I have this approach to this situation, and it can be a little bit harsh, but I always ask, how would your partner have responded if it was them or if it was you that did, that was unfaithful in the relationship? So, whether you being the male or the woman or the man, how would your partner have responded? And I often find that men expect women to be more forgiving in these kind of situations. And to be very honest, I've never been in this kind of situation, so I can't tell you how I would respond. But I can understand women's feelings or men's feelings of being rejected. Often when this kind of situation arises, you tend to self-blame. So you look for how did you fail the person in that they had been unfaithful, as opposed to what were they looking for and what shortcomings did they have that they had to take it out of the relationship, looking for comfort and solace, and so going outside the relationship as opposed to coming to your partner and addressing some kind of concern. So this is exactly the situation I was discussing with the patient yesterday in terms of unfaithfulness, but more in terms of not the physical act, but chatting, online chatting. And I think we've covered this to some extent in previous broadcasts as well. In terms of how do you not get angry again, you really need to ask yourself, have all your concerns been addressed? So if your
Mm-hmm.
partner's been unfaithful, it's really valid to be upset about that. And anger is a very normal emotion. And I think there's a difference between suppressing anger and controlling anger. So we have to understand, that as well. That has some part to play in how everything pans out and how a situation can go out of control. When it comes to your partner being unfaithful, I think that you really need to take steps in determining whether you want to make this relationship work and move past this, or whether this is it, this is the deal breaker, and you go your separate ways. But one thing I do know for sure, when issues have been resolved, you can't reheat them. So you can't reheat a person's sins for breakfast. If it's done, it's done. And then what you need to do then is find ways for yourself and your partner, so individually and together, how to go forward. Because what is important in a marriage or in a relationship is that you're working as a team. There isn't a winner or a loser. You're both on the same team. You both have the same goals. So you need to establish whether you still have the same goals, whether you still want to be together and want to make this work, and then move from there. So it doesn't help rehashing something that or that you think you have resolved, or you have resolved, or you have addressed.
Mm-hmm.
But also we need to understand that it takes a long time to go through or to try to console yourself or to resolve or get over this kind of situation. And every
Mm-hmm.
person's healing and the healing process and their journey to understanding this and accepting the situation for what it is and forgiving the other person, and also forgiving yourself, not blaming yourself for the situation, being able to remove the blame from yourself. Because you know we really can't control how other people respond, or how other people behave, or we can't control what's happening around us in the world, but what we can control is how we respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
So we really need to try to not rehash, bring it up again, unless we really feel that this is something that's ongoing, that hasn't been resolved, and the person keeps resorting to this kind of behavior. So it's a continuous pattern where it's not just one time, it's repeatedly. Then I think you really, you should take steps and be more proactive, and definitely consider counseling and therapy.
Mm-hmm. All
We
right.
need to, I think I'm saying really too often today, but we need to normalize counseling and therapy and professional help.
All right. There is a question here from Hisham van der Skyf, but we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back to Hisham's question.
Osman's Taj Mahal Spice and Rice. For over 80 years, Osman's Taj Mahal have been perfecting the art of the perfect blend of spices, pure, aromatic, and well-seasoned. Spices to tantalize your taste buds. From creative cuisines to gastronomical gourmet goodies, from exotic odors to traditional dishes, Osman's Taj Mahal have remained synonymous with quality spices and condiments. Taj Mahal rice, beans, and lentils. Try our range of chili bite mixes, rose and ilachi syrup, our quick and easy biryani pack, and our traditional range of spice blends. Osman's Taj Mahal. There is no substitute for quality.
This is a paid-for advert by Al Jamar, calling on the community of Lenasia to vote for Al Jamar on the upcoming by-elections. The Al Jamar party will be represented by their candidate Imran Musa, who intends contesting Ward 9 for the November 11th by-elections. Visit our website aljamar.co.za for more information.
From the townships of South Africa, the refugee camps in Syria, or orphanages in Yemen, the eyes of the needy speak volumes with just one glare. We know what it's like to be at ground zero, with food essentials, clothing and blankets, fresh water portal trucks, and even on-site navigators. We use every cent to better their tomorrow. Become part of our journey to bring relief to all. Go to www.ashrafulaid.org or call us on 011-809-8181. Ashraful Aid, under the auspices of Maulana Suhail Wadi.
Connect, and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Maryam Mkwanda Show on Salam Media, and today we are talking about anger and resentment in a marriage, and how to deal with the anger and the resentment that you feel towards your partner. And chatting to me is Dr. Maryam B Khan, who is a relationship coach as well as a sexologist. Shukran for staying with us, Dr. Mariam. The question once again from Hisham van der Scape is, often anger issues are underpinned by a lack of compatibility. Is this a valid point in some manifestations of anger and frustration?
I think that this is a common concern for a lot of people in terms of compatibility. And compatibility, you really need to, ask yourself, like, I think also it depends on whether you've been in an arranged marriage or whether you've been in a so-called love marriage. And there's this idea that if you've met your partner yourself, that it is love. But unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily work like that. So a lot of people enter relationships for specific reasons. And the idea is just because you've gone into this relationship voluntarily and they haven't been external influence by elders, that it's necessarily love, but it's not necessarily love. And people enter marriages for different reasons. So it could be from anything that they feel have sexual desire and don't want to be indulgent of sexual activity out of marriage, so don't want to engage in zina. So marriage is an answer. It could be they need financial stability. It could be just the next phase of life. And they think, okay, I've accomplished so many things. All I have left now to do is, get married. Or that they've always desired being a mother and there's no other way to get into, or especially for Muslims, in terms of being a mother, to be married in order to be a mother. So it would depend on why you enter that relationship or why you enter that marriage, and whether you've considered these ideas of compatibility or not. So if you've overlooked them or ignored them, then they can become a sore point in the marriage. In terms of whether it's a valid reason for manifestation of anger, that's a tricky one. So you have control over how you address concerns in your relationship. You might be valid in your anger, and how that anger manifests might not necessarily be healthy or unhealthy.
Right. Now, are there managing tactics that one can use so that their anger doesn't get out of hand? Like, they know that they are an angry person, so how can they control their anger?
Okay, so you know that in Eastern medicine, there are ideas of certain personalities who would naturally, be prone to anger quicker than other personalities. And sometimes we make this mistake of thinking, oh, okay, that's a short-tempered person, so they are at fault all the time. Like, they must have triggered something, or they must have gotten angry unnecessarily, or their anger would have gone out of control, or blown things out of proportion. But, you learn with time and with experience that you can manage your anger if you are someone that's short-tempered or quick-tempered. In terms of managing and tactics, I think that would then depend on the level of your anger. So how angry are you? Is that anger going out of control or not? So the basic ideas are to calm yourself down in a situation. So whatever makes you calm. Islamically, there are so many references in terms of what anger does to a person and the rewards for being able to manage and control your anger. To read a'udhu, when you are upset. But in general, we talk about things like, taking a deep breath, or taking several deep breaths, walking away from the situation. I think also when it comes to walking away from the situation, if you're in the middle of, a heated argument, you can't just turn around and leave without saying, I need some space. This is upsetting me and I don't want to say something I might regret. So I'd rather walk away and I'll be back in half an hour. This is where I'm going. So this is important that you communicate with your partner, why you need that space and why you're walking away. Whatever else, like personally, if I'm upset, I need to be able to go for a drive. So at the moment, I can't afford to go for a drive because I have a problem with my car and I'm waiting for car parts. So until the car gets fixed, I need to be able to get myself out of any situation where I can lose my temper, because my drive is my fix, you know? So you need to identify what is it that calms you down. So whether it's meditation, breathing, exercise, if you need to go for a massage, just take a walk, whatever it is, those are the simple tactics, so the simple techniques in terms of managing your anger. Of course, if you have a history of uncontrolled anger, then you may need to seek professional help in order to help you find ways to manage that anger.
Speaking about professional help, when should one seek this professional help? I mean, is there should this be probably something coming from their partner telling them, "Hey, you need to go and see professional help," or would they know themselves that I think I need professional help?
Hopefully they would know themselves. The last thing you want is your partner telling you, that you need professional help. Though, I think that sometimes that it's necessary and called for. Though most people do have an understanding that their uh, anger goes out of control. And really, ways of identifying this is people who start getting abusive, so violent, whether it's physical, being physically violent or in a physically threatening way. Also, punching walls, breaking things. So these kind of ways where people really feel unsafe around you, as well as when you are harmful to yourself. So sometimes, you turn to self-harmful measures. So I think being able to identify those kind of behaviors, substance abuse. So sometimes there is, a person might turn to drug addiction or, alcohol or whatever. I would say sometimes even porn. So ways of managing it that can be harmful to you. So risky behavior. If you're able to identify it yourself, then good, alhamdulillah. But if it needs intervention in terms of your partner or your family members telling you like, look, this is now getting out of control. Obviously, hopefully they would do this when you are calm and not when you're upset. Then you would seek professional help, and you would seek it in licensed mental health professionals. So counselors, therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists, depending on what kind of help you need, the level of help that you need. But you would seek help from people who are licensed, registered mental health professionals.
Okay, and what happens when the anger issues go unresolved?
This would then depend on the person and how it's unfolding. So if it means the relationship, it can go into cycles of abuse, never-ending abuse. The relationship will break down, where it cannot be, in terms of it cannot be repaired or mended. So either that becomes a relationship where you are in a marriage, for whatever reason that you feel that you still need to be stuck in that marriage and can't leave it, but you start resenting and hating each other. You can become a menace to society depending on how and where that anger is manifested. So really, we need to address these issues in terms of uncontrolled anger, and you can address this. You can identify this from as early as teenage years. There are many reasons for people having uncontrolled anger. Some of it, arises at home and how things are addressed or not addressed at home in the family with parents and siblings, and feelings of self-worth, your place in the family, your place at school, whether you belong or not belong within your circle of friends, whether you feel validated at home, whether you feel respected, valued. So all of these may trigger these feelings that either you are able to work through them if you have the tools to, and not many of us, not all of us have the tools to be able to do this, which is why we have professionals that you would go to.
Definitely. So, if anyone is listening or watching, if you have any anger issues, please go and seek professional help. If you have further questions for Dr. Maryam, please share them with us. You can also send them to our WhatsApp line on 0617660355. You know what bothers me, Dr. Maryam, is these societal gender issues, these societal gender roles that they give women and men, like men are supposed to be a certain way. So allow him to be angry when you have done something wrong, and you should not be angry when he does something wrong. I don't think that is fair, especially on the women, because if you are angry at something, you should be allowed to express your anger, because anger is just an emotion, just like love, just like any other emotions. As long as it does not go above you, as long as it stays right there and you're able to still solve your problem. So we have a huge issue with society and them dictating how we should live our lives. Also, with the society okaying everything, okaying such behavior, and we spoke about it earlier when we said that if he does something to you, then that's because he likes you or he loves you, and that should not even be part of the conversations that we're having. Our conversations should be able to create safe spaces for people, men, women, and children. And if somebody is dealing with anger, if somebody has an anger issue, they should go and seek help. And if you are a person who is able to recognize the signs and symptoms, help them see it for themselves so that they can get the necessary help.
Absolutely. And in terms of gender normative expectations, I think the other side of that conversation you're having is expecting women to be compassionate and forgiving because it's their
Yeah.
nature to do so. And I always come back with this argument that Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most compassionate, most understanding, most gentle, most forgiving, and is a man. So we should move away from having this this really unrealistic expectation of women to be constantly and perpetually compassionate and forgiving. We all should strive to be this, men and women
Mm,
alike. So, in terms of anger,
definitely.
yes, anger is a valid emotion. How you respond to it is a different story. But it's a normal emotion. It's important to be able to acknowledge it. Actually, you shouldn't be suppressing it.
Mm,
You should be acknowledging it because acknowledging it allows you to then take steps to resolving it, to addressing the concern that makes you angry. But we shouldn't also expect that only men are allowed to be angry
mm,
and that men's anger is valid because they are men and this is how men behave. Actually, that is what feeds and enables the toxic masculinity that we are facing now.
mm,
It's a huge concern. It really is a pandemic. So in terms of that, I think you're spot on. And we need to address this in terms
mm.
within our Islamic circles, our Muslim circles and communities. We do have a concern. It's a serious concern.
And I hope that our communities should allow for such conversations to happen instead of brush them under the carpet as if they don't exist, because we are not doing anything to solve the problem. And at the end of the day, we have kids who are growing up and seeing these problems and are adopting such problems as well, and they become toxic as well, and it just goes on in circles and circles, and nothing gets solved. But we are out of time. Shukran so much for chatting to us once again, Dr. Maryam, and have a wonderful day.
You're most welcome. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That was Dr. Maryam B Khan talking to us about anger management, anger and resentment in a marriage, how to deal with it. You can continue sharing your questions, queries, or suggestions with us in the comment section, or you can send them to us on WhatsApp. The number is 0617 Do stay with us. We will be right back.